President Trump is not just getting results here at home, but abroad as well. Now, when he paused military aid to Ukraine, of course, the usual suspects went crazy, but now Europe is finally opening up its checkbook.
I present today to the leaders the Rearm Europe plan. The Rearm Europe plan provides up to 800 billion euros for defense investment. It gives the member states possibility to invest in the Ukrainian defense industry or to procure military capabilities that go right away to Ukraine.
What took you so long? Got a big GDP, all of you combined. Come on. Now, meanwhile, as Trump pushes for peace, French President Emmanuel Macron is set on keeping this war going, no matter how many hundreds of thousands have been slaughtered. He suggested that France could extend its nuclear umbrella to shield its allies in Europe. And reports today that Europe is considering withholding intel from the United States for the first time in modern history. Joining me now is Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence. Director Gabbard, do you see this as actually a threat to the United States, that Europe would not share intel with us? And what is your reaction to that report?
I'm laughing, Laura, because we've heard this story before, and generally it's coming from those who are either former leaders within our own intelligence community who are trying to politicize their titles and their positions to try to undermine President Trump's peace mission and agenda. And perhaps this is now coming from people within Europe, again, who would like to see endless war continue. The answer to your question is no. I can tell you just today alone, I met with 2 different senior intelligence leaders from Europe who came here to visit, to introduce themselves and to say, hey, we really look forward to continuing to work with you. I've met with other European leaders earlier this week who've come to Washington, D.C. for the same reason, really strengthening, continuing to strengthen that relationship and letting us know how much they rely on us for our support and the intelligence that we share. President Trump is the peace president, and he is putting the interests of the American people and our taxpayers first and foremost. This is something that he campaigned on, that he promised the American people that he would deliver. And so when you look at the decisions that he's made over the last 45 days that he's been in office, he has been very consistent and very focused on keeping those promises and delivering very real and historically quick results.
Well, one of your old pals spoke out today about what's really going on. Watch.
Some of the United States' closest allies and intelligence sharing allies are now having discussions and concerns about how the United States is clearly moving closer to Russia.
And the fact that the Trump administration now is cozying up to Russia, they really have to ask themselves, how can they trust the United States? Because it could be compromised as a result of Trump's whims. Maybe he wants to give Putin, some type of insight into why we know certain things.
Now, that proven liar is once again, Tulsi, accusing President Trump basically of Russia collusion. What is your message to him tonight?
We have heard this before over and over and over again, this same tired tactic that anyone who dares to stand for peace, as President Trump has, as I have, as J.D. Vance has, as so many others have, saying that we need to end the killing, the senseless loss of life that this tragic war has waged for years now. They accuse us of being Russian assets or puppets of Putin. It really is quite disgusting in my own view, and really speaks to the influence that the warmongers, the military-industrial complex has. They can't answer to really what President Trump's call is for peace. So instead, they throw out these smears and lies and accusations that I think the American people are seeing right through.
Now, you were at the airport for the delivery of the ISIS terrorists responsible for the murder of 13 American soldiers at the Abbey Gate bombing in Afghanistan. Take us inside. What was it like when he was finally brought to the United States for justice?
Well, he was a ISIS terrorist, as you pointed out, who played a role in that tragic Abbey Gate bombing. There are others who are responsible for that. We will continue to hunt them down and find them and bring them to justice. But as I stood out there on the tarmac with Pam Bondi and John Ratcliffe and Kash Patel, all I thought of was the families of those 13 who were killed in that bombing and the many, many more who were wounded. And I can't even imagine what they must be feeling like in knowing that at least with this one terrorist who participated in that bombing, that this path to justice was beginning. Now, President Trump has shown the kind of leadership that once again lets our enemies know that we will not forget those who attack our American servicemen and women, and we will bring them to justice.
We're going to get to the border in a second, but the other report that came out was that we were considering not sharing intel, I believe, with Ukraine after the dust-up with Zelensky. Where does that stand?
The president decided to put a pause on intelligence sharing along with military aid, really to send a message to Zelensky not to take the American people for granted. This came in the wake of a statement that came from Zelensky when he said that the war would go on for a very, very long time and that he was confident that no matter what, that American aid and support would continue to flow his way. The president is our America First president. He wanted to deliver a message that hopefully Zelensky would receive. It appears that there is now progress being made toward actually getting Zelensky and the Ukrainians to the negotiating table to make progress towards a ceasefire and a peace deal.
Just so I'm clear, Tulsi, is that pause of intel sharing now lifted, or is that continuing? That's what they're pegging the turn to Russia on. That, well, that's going to put Ukrainian lives in danger and then thus help Vladimir Putin. That's the Brennan narrative.
The pause has not yet been lifted, but I imagine that if things continue to go in the direction that they are, that it would be lifted. There is a distinction between the intelligence sharing, at least, that intelligence going towards any offensive strikes was paused, but any intelligence going towards defending Ukraine against attacks coming into their country would continue.
Director Gabbard, I've known you for so long, I'm still calling you Tulsi. Forgive me. Director Gabbard, you were at the border yesterday, fabulous, with the Vice President, the Secretary of Defense. Now, you revealed that the Biden administration, I didn't believe this headline, that they deported only 8 out of 100 illegals with ties to ISIS. That can't be. I mean, I actually can't even believe that's true. 8 out of 100?
I had the same doubts that you had when I got this information from our National Counterterrorism Center, because it is inconceivable to me to have a commander-in-chief and a president who would knowingly return those who are either known or suspected terrorists or those who had very close ties with known or suspected terrorists back onto our streets in their country. But unfortunately, it's exactly what happened. There were over 400 illegal immigrants who came from Central Asia into our country. Of those, there were hundreds who had either ties to terrorists or were terrorists themselves. As you said, the Biden administration arrested a bunch and then let them all go back into our country, other than 8. So this is where we are working very closely with the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI, with our National Counterterrorism Center, to make sure that we find them, that we remove them, and that we have the vetting in place to take this action to remove those from our country immediately who pose a threat.
Director Gabbard, from a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being worse than you thought, how swampy is the intel community? 1 to 10.
You know, I knew it was bad coming in. It's worse than I thought in a lot of different ways. I'd love to come back and talk to you as we pull back the layers, really, of getting rid of the weaponization within the intelligence community, the politicization, and those who are, frankly, trying to shape intelligence according to their own view or their own agenda, rather than just providing our policymakers and the president with that unbiased, accurate, timely intelligence that they need to make their decisions. This example that we just talked about, where the Biden administration released these known or suspected terrorists or those with links to ISIS terrorists back into our country, you look at the dereliction of duty of that, but you also recognize this is one form of that politicization, where the Biden administration was so afraid of being labeled Islamophobes. You know, they took this pro-Islamist bent in endangering our own national security that we see in that example. But we've also seen with the pro-Hamas, you know, rallies on streets across the country and the riots. And so we see now with President Trump, he and I and others on the national security team are focusing our resources back where they belong, on keeping the American people safe and getting rid of those who seek to do us harm.
Director Gabbard, come back soon. Don't be a stranger. Great to see you. Thanks so much.